We'll just wait another moment. I'm surprised we don't have 400 agents on the call today.
Can't believe it's already September.
Yes, my favorite season for sure.
I love fall.
Yes, love this weather. It's not too hot, it's not cold.
Morning, Mary.
Morning.
We'll just wait another moment to get people. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Donna.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I will wait 1 minute and we'll get started. I see more people joining. All right, so for today's session, I just wanted to go over the buyer agency agreement. We have a few cases where an issue came with the protection period, and I just wanted to show you how to complete it, fill it out, how to protect yourself, what is your responsibility when a client either terminates, or let's say you did a one-day agreement. We have come across with some of the leadership team where you had showed a property, you did a one-day buyer agency agreement, then you find out that the buyer is submitting an offer with someone else. So we just wanted to go over the buyer agency agreement so you are all aware of how to really fill it out. I know we're always on the go. We don't pay attention. We think people will be loyal to us. However, it turns, learning from experience, people just are so desperate to buy a house that they'll go with whoever they think can get them the best price, best deal. So just make sure you guys are protecting yourselves when you're filling out these forms. So I am going to share my screen. All right. You guys can all see my screen, correct? So this is a buyer loop. This is what your buyer loop will look like. And then right here, you have the exclusive buyer agency agreement. So we're going to start right from the beginning. It's very important that you fill this out. Otherwise, you're not going to be protected. Now, if you leave this blank where it says, obviously, you put the buyer's name, the brokerage, your name, the buyer's name, whoever you're representing. Now, where it says which areas that you're looking, whether you're putting the address, if you leave it blank, it covers the entire state. And then if you cover county, so you want to be very specific. So that's where you're going to put the area. Now, just remember that when you're meeting with a buyer, you want to ask them if they already have something signed. We have also learned that sometimes they're not sure. I guess some agents are not explaining what this agreements mean, and they have no idea they signed it. But you want to make sure you're also protecting your time. You don't want to show a property that they already have something signed with someone else. So sometimes just remember they may have this signed with someone in South Jersey, and now they want to get something signed here with you. Okay, so just make sure you ask them. You want to make sure that you are aware if they have something signed with someone else. Here, you are either a buyer's agent or a buyer's agent and disclosed dual agent, or a buyer's agent and designated agent. I would always recommend you pick the second one, just because if you are showing a RE/MAX select property, that's a dual agent. It doesn't mean that you're representing both buyer seller, or you may have a 6-month agreement and down the line you end up getting a listing that it's perfect for your buyer. You want to make sure that they understand that you will be a dual agent. The terms, this is like the most important one right here. Let's say today's date, September 2nd. When will this expire? Whether it's 1 day, 6 months, 7 months, please don't leave it blank. Like, you want to make sure this is complete. This is how you guys get paid. It's going to help us. Like, it's hard for me to fight, or any of the managers to fight for you when you don't have this completed. Or if no days are filled in, so 3 days after the broker receives notification, this will be canceled. So if you leave it blank, or if you want, you can put in, how long do they need to give you notice to cancel this agency agreement? Commission from the buyer. So obviously no retainer fee for RE/MAX Select. Then this is where you put in your percentage. Please don't leave it blank. Even if, let's say you found a property and the seller is paying the commission, if yours is blank or 0, you're getting 0. Okay, you want to have to put an amount, whether it's 1%, 2%, 3%, you must list it. Or if you need, or if you're taking a flat amount, which most of the time you won't, it would be a percentage, but make sure you fill this out. Very, very important. Any questions so far? Okay. Number 3,
And
this,
Donna,
yes.
yes, could you go back? You said something about 3 days where the cancellation section was.
So right here, where's the terms, when does your buyer agency expire? It says this agreement shall begin on, let's say today's date, September 2nd, and expires when A, buyer acquires property as set forth in section 1, or at midnight on, so that's the end, or blank days. If no days are filled in, then 3 days after broker or buyer receives a written termination notice from the other party, but the protection period set forth in section 5A, number 3, line 2 will remain in effect. So let's say you don't put in a date here and your client sends you an email tomorrow, says I want to cancel it, then it will be canceled within 3 days. Okay. Or if you put in, like, let's say here, I'm going to say December 31st. Now, remember that on this agreement, even though you're saying this agreement ends in December 31st, either party may cancel it in writing, but you have to make sure that you have your protection period. This is what really is going to cover you. So if you leave it blank, I'm telling you right now, the likelihood of us helping you get your commission is probably 0. Even if you had spent 2 hours with that buyer, you have to put in how many days. So whether it's expired or terminated, and if you showed them properties, how many days? I see 90 days. I think it's safer to say maybe, again, you can put whatever you feel comfortable, but I would recommend at least 6 months. Sometimes you may have showed a property, submitted an offer, and your offer didn't get accepted because somebody else's offer was better. It went under contract. Now they go through attorney review, etc. So time passes, right? So 3 months will come and go, but 6 months is usually, I would say, a safer time frame if you're showing a property. Sometimes something may be under contract for 3-4 months and it goes back to active. You don't want to lose that buyer. So let's say you did 6 months, you show them 4 properties. The buyer says, hey, I want to cancel this agreement. I'm going a different route, or I didn't realize my cousin is a realtor and I want her to help me, or, oh, I'm selling my house and the listing agent is going to help me buy a property. You want to make sure that you send them an email that says, hey, the agreement is terminated. However, in the next 180 days, if you see the following properties that I have shown you, you will owe us a commission. Okay, if you don't have anything here, guys, just so you know, after the expiration or termination date, you're not being covered. So if you had shown them properties and they submit an offer after a week of this being terminated, you're not going to get your commission. All right, so this is like the most important one that we've been kind of dealing. We have buyers that don't understand they're submitting, they're right. They just so desperate to see the house, they keep signing these agreements, but you have to make sure that that's how you hold them accountable. You want to explain it to them. Don't make this not be a big deal, because it is. This is a contract between you and the buyer. And don't let it go. Like, you want to make sure. Sometimes you may think, oh, this person's never going to buy that house. They show no interest, and you move on. And then later you find out that they actually did buy it. So even if you didn't want to work with that buyer and you were happy they wanted to not work with you, you want to send them an email, a proper email, just saying, hey, this agreement has been now expired or terminated as of September 2nd. I showed you the following properties. Please note that if you end up buying any of the properties above in the next 180 days, a commission to Remax Select will be owed, whatever the percentage was. Any questions, guys? Fran, if you're on the call and if you can speak, I know you and I have been talking about this, so if you want to add something I didn't add, please do so.
Yeah, it seems like the protection period is the real downfall here. Plus, if we were to have to go to arbitration for you, if that protection period is not in, I can tell you that it's unlikely that you're going to get paid. Now, we do not have to give this buyer agency agreement to anyone, but if it is requested and it's not filled out properly, then you do have to give it to your buyer. But if, let's say there's a question, about whether or not you were covered to receive a compensation on a particular property from that buyer, it holds no weight without that protection period. It's 100% what Adona is saying is absolutely right. You need to make sure that that's filled in. And I just wouldn't give it 30 days there. I would give it 180 days, because things go on the market, fall apart. And then all of a sudden, hey, you made an offer for your customer on that. Maybe they were mad at you because you lost the property and now they asked to be withdrawn from this agreement and now the property is available again. So it's always really a great idea to cover all of your bases with this. So, and I always put 3% in the agreement, especially if you're making one agreement at the beginning. And then in paragraph 17, I always add, prior to any offer being submitted, I will advise you what the compensation is being paid by the seller. And we can use the addendum to make any corrections to that. And they just really need to understand, like, you don't want to keep having to re-sign these agreements. That's why they're available also for this. So
this is the addendum. If you have not used it, it's right underneath the buyer agency agreement. And then this is where you can make changes. So let's say your commission is 3%. You find them a property that's only covering, that's paying 2 or 2.5, and you're willing to do that for them just to get the deal done. You can use this just for that property. And then let's say like one time, or let's say your commission is 2%, you found them a property that's paying 2.5, you can also use this addendum. You can also use it to extend the expiration date. Let's say you did a 1-day agreement, you both hit it off, you want to continue working together. Instead of you filling out the entire agreement, you can fill out this addendum saying that it has been extended for 2 months, 3 months. Just make sure you put a specific date on this agreement. The other thing that I have come across is when you're submitting an offer and they are paying a compensation from the other side. Let me just find it. Let's see. Right here, the cooperating broker compensation agreement. This is in the beginning, I'm like, okay, here we go, another form that we probably don't need. But now this is actually becoming very, very important. Make it a habit to send it with your offers, or even when you have the listing signed and somebody's submitting an offer, make this as a requirement for them to send it to you with the offer. Okay, how do you make that effective? How do you enforce it? On your on the MLS under agent remarks, you can say when you're submitting an offer, please submit the following documents and have this form be one of them. We have usually attorneys cannot change our commission structure, but we have come to some issues where the buyer is saying, oh, I never agreed to this, or the seller saying, hey, I never agreed to this. I only wanted to offer 2%. The contract is 2.5%. And then they go back and forth to change that. So make sure you get this also signed. So if let's say, like you said, it's 2.5% from the purchase price and then it's signed, this kind of protects you as well, so that if somebody was going to go and change it, you already have this form signed from the beginning. You can't do it after the fact. Also, I know some of you have come to us about like the listing fee. So this is very important as well. How do you enforce it? We at Remax Select, we're still collecting and paying a listing fee. I would say maybe instead of saying a listing fee, change the verbiage, say a technology fee, marketing fee, whatever you want to call it, just to get through it, because some companies are refusing to pay it out. But you can enforce it by not accepting their offer until you get this sign that says they're going to pay the $250 or $200, whatever your fee was. That's how you can enforce it. Otherwise, if you let it go and they submit an offer and they put 2% and you let it go and you assume that they'll pay it at closing, that's not going to happen. We won't be able to fight for you for that. But if you did this correctly and in the end they try to refuse to pay it, obviously this will hold you, we will be able to collect it by having these forms signed. Very important. Also, just a reminder, anytime there's any changes to any of these forms, even if it's your parents, sisters, brothers, cousins, best friends, make sure you get it initialed. Don't just think that by you making a change and the other party signs it, that your client or the other side doesn't have to initial a sign. It's not, it's going to be an invalid contract. So let's just say you received an offer on your listing and you countered something. You should not be the one to make the change. If you are the one making the change, you want both parties to initial that change, not just your client, because what happens is that your client signed it, but the buyer assumes nothing was changed on the contract, or vice versa if you're on the buyer side and the seller didn't initial something. So anytime there's a counter, you want to make sure all parties initial the change.
And we are just getting to this. So many buyer agency, questions coming over this. So it's just starting to happen, really. And you really need, and really like cross your T's and dot your I's on the contracts. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, so these forms are all, especially with getting this forms initialed, this is coming now, and I think we'll see more cases as people are getting used to using these forms more and holding buyers accountable for their commission, so please make sure you're filling these forms out completely. Otherwise, it's very hard to get your commission. Any questions or any issues, any concerns? This is the time to ask.
This is Bill Adona. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Fine. Have you come across in your review of these documents where sellers or buyers wanted to edit the document and change some of the verbiage?
Yes, however, we as real estate agents, we cannot make changes to any of the pre-printed documents. And if the buyers or I've seen a lot, not on the buyer seller, but I've seen it on tenants and landlords wanting to change the verbiage or add something in addition to what was provided, they can create their own addendum. But I do advise them that if they needed to cross anything out or change any of the verbiage, that's why in New Jersey we use attorneys, right? The attorney is the one who does the attorney, they disapprove the contract and they provide their own rider. That is the time to do it. So it's best to advise your client that, hey, this is a pre-printed contract. We can only add on the blank, on the provided lines. I can't cross out any of the verbiage. So if you did not want or like any of the verbiage, the attorney is the one who can change it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Claudia, how can we charge technology fee from buyer's agent if their buyers are paying their commission? So that's a great question. If your seller is not paying a commission, then no, you will not, you should not. It's not fair for you to charge a technology fee or a listing fee if your seller is not offering to pay the commission. This is only if your seller is offering a commission, then yes, you can go ahead and change it. However, on the tenant side, the tenant pays the broker fee, and it's been this way even now with the changes. We have been able to collect the listing fee or technology fee, whatever you may call. The tenant's agent has just asked their client, hey, you're paying, let's say the rent was 2,000, you pay 1,100 to Remax Select, and then they can either collect $900 for their agent or 1,000. I've seen both sides happen where they tell their tenant they just have to pay an extra $100 or $50, whatever that fee was. But on the sales side, I unless Fran, you think otherwise, or any other leadership team, I don't think you would be able to really ask for a technology or a listing fee if your client is not paying the commission.
Yeah, I think that would be tough. I also have seen so many agents, and don't be afraid of it, if they have on their agreements 2.5% and the seller's only offering 2, they're collecting the other 0.5% from the buyer. Right now the buyers are really happy to still get a home, because it's so difficult. The market is still a little difficult in North Jersey. I don't know about the rest of the state, but it is difficult up here. There's still some bidding wars going on. So they're able to collect that. Will it happen forever? No, maybe not, but they're taking advantage of the situation and earning what they can for the job that they did. So and they really explain that to their buyers when they're doing this, so that works out.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good point. So yeah, so let's say your commission was 2.5 and the seller's only offering 2 on your contract. You can write that you're getting 2% from the seller, 0.5 or 1% from your buyer. So far, we haven't had any issues with agents collecting from both buyer and seller. So I hope you guys all feel comfortable on collecting that fee, and I'll just show you the contract of sale and the commission statement as well. So. So right here, you can put in 2%. Let's say there was a listing fee, and then you can collect 0.5% from your buyer. You want to make sure that if you are collecting from the buyer and seller, you let the lender be aware of it. The lender should know that the buyer needs to pay you the 0.5% from the beginning. Don't wait till the last minute, because if the lender is not calculating, let's say the 0.5 could be 1,000 or it could be $5,000, they may make a huge difference for their closing costs. So you want to make sure that that is discussed from the beginning. Okay, and then we also have it on your commission statement, which I'll show you, which has that you can list both sides.
Even I was just going to add that even if you don't put it on the contract of sale, because I've had a situation, and I'm sorry, I'm driving, I'm not sure if I'm on camera, but I've had a situation where they changed my contract and sent it back signed, and I didn't even realize that it had been changed. And as soon as I realized it had already been signed, and that's a two-party contract between the buyer and seller. But I still had my contract with the buyer, and the buyer was perfectly happy to pay it. But I sent it to the attorney, and I made sure he was aware that I had a buyer agency agreement that allowed me to collect that other 0.5%, which I did at closing. So
you can just so let's say you submitted an offer, you had an agreement for 2.5, you submitted an offer where you requested the seller to pay 2.5, but the seller went ahead and changed it to 2%, correct?
It was actually, I asked for 3% because I had negotiated a 3% deal with my buyer, and they changed it to 2.5, like literally whited it out and signed it and sent it back. And we had talked about it. The agent said, "Oh, my seller's only offering 2.5." I said, "No problem. I'll resend you whatever. I'll resend it." And I added my 2.5 and the 5% from the buyer. For whatever reason, they signed it and they changed it. It just said 2.5. It didn't have my 0.5%. So anyway, I said, oh, there's been a mistake because I did check it, you know, when it was about to close. I'm like, oh, this is incorrect. And I sent them my buyer agency and it was not an issue because we still have an agreement with our buyers, even though there's a contract of sale. And we always say the contract of sale rules, it does. But if you have another agreement that is also in effect, you can claim it under that. I'm just saying that, you know, I don't know what it is. Is that just a courtesy to put it in there? Because if you have a buyer agency agreement, you still are able to collect on that. At least that's been my experience.
Right, but if your seller's also, you know, that's also disclosing to the lender that the buyer's, you know, obviously the lender is the one who's collecting that contract. They need to know if the buyer's paying anything or if the money's being from even the title company, right? They need to see who's paying what, because if you don't add a commission on the contract of sale, the title company can close a deal and not even know that their commission is owed, especially if you're like not paying
Agreed.
attention to
Yeah.
your deal. So it is important to list the commission, but I think you brought up a great point that it's very important to also make sure that you review the contract once it's initialed and signed by the other party, because things get changed. While, like, let's say you filled out a contract to the terms that your client agreed, and then it comes back to you and it's changed, and now you have your client sign or initial something that you were not even aware that they added something to the contract. That could be, you know, we've seen lawsuits over a chandelier, for example, you know, something that was removed or added. It's almost 10 o'clock, but I do want to make sure you guys pay attention to the little details, like what's included and excluded as well when you're writing those contracts. So you want to make sure that, you let your clients know. Sometimes there'll be a lawsuit against like washer and dryer, right? Or so just make sure you're paying attention to these little details. All right, guys, that's all I wanted to go over, just because we had a few cases that came up regarding the buyer agency agreement and all these other agreements. Next week, very, very important, friend Blakely is going to do our quarterly rental compliance. So please make sure you join next week at 9:30. It will be recorded just like this one, but sometimes it's easier if you join the live session, because then that way you can ask questions right there and then. So please make sure you save the date. We'll send out reminders. I hope you guys all have a great, great week. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to us.
Thank you. All
Bye,
right.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.